back to the Payal Nanjiani Leadership Podcast. This is your host, Payal Nanjiani. In what ways can a leader promote the idea in their team and organization to show that there is light in dark situations and that there is always a different way of looking at things, even in the midst of any crisis? To help us understand this, we have with us in our studio today none other than Nazareno Ventola, the CEO and Managing Director of the Bologna International Airport. He is known as the man who has led Bologna Airport to a successful landing at the Italian Stock Exchange through an IPO that allowed the opening of the majority of the company's shareholding to private investors. Nazareno joins us today to talk to us about being anti-fragile. Nazareno, welcome to the Payal Nanjiani podcast. It is truly an honor to have you here in the studio and talk about this very imperative topic, being anti-fragile.
Hello, good afternoon. It's an honor for me to be asked to give you my experience, to tell you about my experience and how it is to be anti-fragile, which sounds probably a bit odd.
No, I think this is such a topic which is the need of any generation. I think every time business evolves, every time, we go through different phases in the business. Not this time it was the pandemic. Sometimes it's the economic crisis. US right now, we are here going through a recession. So I think this topic is for every phase, every era of business. And before we dive into this topic, I have read about you so much around, especially in the CEO magazine and the other interviews that you've given in the past. I would love for you to tell us something about your career journey, about some ups and downs and how you just reached where you are today.
Thank you. Well, my career journey, I'm a chemical engineer by education. So I started actually, my first job was in a oil and gas industry in Italy, one of the major ENI called ENI, and I was working for the research and development department, dealing with research and development projects for the whole company. So that was my starting for the career. Then I moved to the a consultant for almost less than 1 year, which actually I wanted to look for a career change to have more responsibility, as it happens. And I found out that it wasn't my cup of tea. I wasn't enjoying myself enough, and probably I wasn't right for that place at that time. So I was looking for a different opportunity, and I was lucky enough to find an opportunity in a new company for me and a new sector, which was the aviation sector. And actually, this was 22 years ago. So after that, I stayed in the aviation sector, and I learned a lot from this sector, which is fascinating because it's a global one. And it's an ever-changing one, and it has this mission of connecting people and connecting the whole world. So I'm quite happy for the journey I've been doing so far, and I also have been quite lucky to learn from lots of people and to actually having had the opportunity to bring my contribution to the development of the company. As you said at the beginning, I also was going through a strategic change for the company, leading the company through the IPO procedure, which was actually a decision by our shareholders in 2013 to change actually the strategic direction of the company, to open it to the market and prepare it for the future. And it was a very challenging and exciting journey for us, for the whole people of the company, because a listed company is different from a non-listed one in many terms. And we were lucky enough to have a successful landing in summer 2015.
Like you just mentioned, that it is it's a change in the direction, and anytime you change the strategy and you do something big like the one you did, where you had the landing into the Italian stock exchange, what were some of the challenges? Like you said, we were lucky enough to do that, but I'm sure more than the luck, there were other factors that played into getting into the Italian stock exchange. Tell us a little bit about how did you make that possible? Any challenges and any success stories around it?
Well, right. I think the first thing is that you need to have a good product to sell. Let's say we were selling our company to the market, and if the product is not good, then it's much harder. When you have to be honest about what you're selling, which I think it applies for everything. In our case, the corporate story of the airport was of a successful airport that was growing in a region that one of the richest and wealthiest regions of the country, and also one of the wealthiest area in terms of economic activity of Western Europe, which is something that was, of course, was a given for us, something that we could leverage on. At the same time, we weren't a large company in terms of dimensions, so there was this challenge that how to be attractive to sufficient number of potential shareholders, potential investors, considering the dimension of the company. So we had to sell the story in a way that was interesting for the market. And the challenge was also that we were doing that between 2014 and 2015, where in Europe, the financial situation was not the best one. We were going through a turmoil on the markets. I remember when we went for the roadshow in June 2015, there was this referendum in Greece for the euro, to stay in the euro, and the market was going down like 4% in one day, on that day when we started the roadshow. So we really had to be, believe in ourselves and what we were selling in terms of the story and the potential of the airport. And of course, doing this together with all our people, none of us had an experience of having a listing process before, but we knew the company very well. And of course, we were supported by advisors, by our shareholders. But the main idea was that we were believing that we were honest in our value proposition for the investors. And probably I learned after that if you are honest in what you're saying, and if it tells, and then the investors understand that.
But like you said, that we believed in ourselves. So as a CEO, you had this vision, you had the belief. What about the people? What about your teams? Did they also believe that this was possible, or were they just flowing with you? How did you see that?
No, they believe. But of course, I had to stimulate and to motivate people in difficult times. But this is our job. I mean, we have to do it. But no, I think it was a collective effort. It wasn't that difficult to convince my colleagues because we were all on the same boat, and I was also asking their help and their suggestions. I think this is something very important. You're not, as a leader, you're not in one way you're alone in making the tough decisions, and you have to take responsibility from that. On the other hand, you have to be humble enough to ask for help from your people and ask advice, and show also when you have doubts, when you have not clear ideas on a specific issue, to discuss together with the other people. So involve them in the process. This is something that it pays a lot when you go through difficult times, because then they can help you, and we can come out find out a solution together.
Okay, so they were with you in that belief system. They knew exactly what you're doing, and they also wanted to follow that path, basically.
Yes.
Okay, so diving deep into this topic now, what is anti-fragile?
Well, anti-fragility. I will start with a definition of what is a word that has been used a lot during the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic, which is resilience. Because sometimes people mix up resilience with anti-fragility. And the definition of the Oxford Dictionary for resilience is the ability of a substance to return to its original shape after it has been bent, stretched, or pressed. So a very precise definition. And this word resilience has been used also to describe the behavior of the people and the organization of the whole world facing the pandemic. The idea that I developed during those days is that probably it is not enough to model and to understand what we were going through and how we should come out of the crisis, be it a COVID crisis or any other one. And so I went through this book by Nassim Taleb, Anti-Fragility, and the definition of anti-fragility is a bit different, because it's something which is beyond robustness, is beyond resilience. The difference is that a resilient system comes back to the previous stage after the shock, but an anti-fragile system gets better, improves, takes energy from the shock, and then goes up to an upper level. So an anti-fragile organization, an anti-fragile person, is someone that learns from the shock, learns from the experience, and resists, of course. It's also probably somehow resilient, but it's more than that. It becomes stronger and better through this hard experience.
Stronger and better through the hard experience. I like that.
Yes.
Because many of us, what happens is when there are hard times, we don't think we are going to come out better. So I think this is something which all of us can remember, that it's all about, how we come out stronger and better. And in your role as a CEO, you have built your team, you hired people. What are some of the qualities that you see in a person that tells you that this person is anti-fragile or not? How do you gauge that?
Interesting question. I think a couple of things. First of all, the person needs to be able to show also that he or she is vulnerable. So it doesn't have to be afraid to show that he needs help or she needs help from other people, and she has doubts, he has doubts, which doesn't mean that he doesn't have the capabilities to do something. It just shows that he understands what are his or her limits. And this is something, if you are able to show it in a positive way, it's a good sign that you can be anti-fragile. And also, which it goes along with that, being able to learn from defeats. Okay. Which is something very important. There is a quote that probably we all know from Nelson Mandela that says, "I never lose, I either win or learn."
Yeah.
And I think that quote represents the core of a person that is anti-fragile.
Now, Nazareno, during the interview itself, are there any questions that come up to your mind that you can share that can help our audience also, who are leaders, to actually, when they are discussing with their people, what is it that they would ask that would tell them whether this person is anti-fragile or not? Anything comes to your mind? Any questions come to your mind which you usually ask people that?
Oh, yes.
The implication?
Well, as I said, I mean, I would ask people to tell about themselves, not tell me about your successes and your victories, but tell me about what makes you awake at night, and tell me about a defeat from which you learned something, from which you could evolve. I think this is something very important, because if a person is anti-fragile, he won't take this question as a threat. We will take it as an opportunity to tell something about him or herself and show how he or she could learn from this. So I think if you can handle this, then there is a good chance that you are anti-fragile.
I think that's, you really nailed it, because a lot of times when we are taking interviews or we are hiring, we focus so much on the skills and the experience and the number of years that questions like these, we tend to not spotlight them. And when we've hired the person, and then there are times like COVID or crisis, that's the time the real self of the person comes out, the real qualities. And I think many a times that's the time we fail to understand that, during the interview process, or during just generally even talking to your teams, and you ask such questions, tell us about your failures, without making them feel the threat of it and them being vulnerable, like you said. I think that's what really, you really nailed that's what really will tell you exactly who's on your team and what type of qualities of anti-fragile they bring with you. So in your own career, Nazareno, how have you applied this quality from where you started, like you said, a mechanical engineer, and getting to now becoming, you're a CEO of a company? How did you apply this in your own life? Any example, any incident that made you feel, hey, you know what, I need to be anti-fragile, or it gave you the indication I am anti-fragile person? Well,
couple of examples. When I was changing as I said, my career journey, when I left my first job as a chemical engineer in the oil and gas company, I went through I accepted an offer from a small consultancy company in Italy. As I said, I wanted to have more responsibility and to develop my knowledge. I thought that consultancy would be a good idea for me, and after a few months, I understood it wasn't the right choice. because for different, it was probably too, at that time, it was too commercial, too much hard selling services to the clients, and not and delivering at any rate, at any cost, even if the solution wasn't the best possible. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it was something which I didn't feel I was in the right place. I didn't share the value, the core value of the company itself. And then I also had some issues, some problems with my boss at the time, which was a type of person, very demanding, which is fine, but in the wrong way, let's say, from a character point of view. So at that moment, after I said I had to change, I had to quit, and I decided to quit before finding a new job, because I thought it was healthier for me. Mm-hmm. After that, of course, it was a kind of little shock for me, because I wasn't used to such defeats in my career, also in my university period. I never had such an experience. But at the same time, if I put in perspective, I think that was a moment when I went through hell for some time, but I came out stronger, because I was learning through hard times what I could do, what I could not do, and which were the values I could be ready to fight for, and which were the values I wasn't ready to fight for. So, and I after that, I think in any case, it was a positive experience. If I look at it now, when I was into it, I would think, oh, I want to get out of this situation. I can't bear it anymore. But after that, I think it was very useful. So I got kind of vaccinated through this experience. Which is something that helps me a lot to still today.
Yeah, I think that vaccination.
yeah, right. And the second example is much more obvious, probably, is what our company and myself and all our people have gone through during the pandemic, because our industry, aviation sector, has been one of the hardest hit in terms, as you know, just to give you an idea, we went from 200 flights and 30,000 passengers per day in the airport during the hardest period of the pandemic. In the lockdown, we went down to 30,000 to 70 passengers and one flight, and that lasted for 2.5 months. So you can imagine the shock and being able, and we had to stay open anyway, because operationally. We were designated by the government as one of the airports in the country that needed to be open anyway, even with one flight per day. And so operationally, it was an issue to deal with. Economically, you can imagine it was a disaster financially to keep the infrastructure open, but we had to do it. And so after the first couple of weeks, we'd say, okay, what can we learn from this? I mean, how can we work on our processes? How can we readjust our business process in order to stay open, serve our customers the best we can, and prepare when the pandemic will be over? And we didn't know when it would have been over, because somehow it hasn't finished yet, although the impact is much smaller than it was 2.5 years ago. And I talked to my people, and I said, okay, we have to, of course, survive, but survive, I think we miss a chance. If we only stay here and try to be only resilient and survive, and when the crisis will be over, we would have missed a chance to learn how to get better, to improve, to take this experience as something that will teach us something for the future. And so we engage, for instance, as I wrote in the paper that was published, we engage in an exercise, a scenario planning exercise to envisage, to figure out different alternative futures in which we could find ourselves, and try to understand how our company would be sufficiently resilient, robust in different scenarios. So this helped us to be motivated, to motivate the people, and to look also at something into the future, not just dealing with the day-by-day issues that were much stressing.
Scenario planning exercise, I think that's wonderful. I haven't heard that in a long time, where you're doing something like this with the group and seeing where it could come up with. So I think that really is something that you worked on. But how When we say things like what doesn't kill you makes you, is that the same thing like anti-fragile?
Sort of. It's common
Okay.
wisdom. But with a difference, which is important. In anti-fragile, probably there is also the idea of positive change, evolution, which is probably is not so obvious in the saying that you just mentioned. But yeah, somehow it's like that. But in anti-fragile, you also think of getting better, improving, changing in a positive way.
So I like those words, improving. Like from the start of this podcast, you've always said that you will come out better and you will come out stronger. You'll always improve on yourself. So Nazareno, what's been your routine that has helped you to become what you are today? Anything that you follow, you have a non-negotiable routine or something that you follow that really built you the way you are?
Well, I don't know if it's a routine, but it's something which I try to make it as a routine. In every situation, I ask myself, what can I learn from this? When a problem comes, I always ask myself and the people that are with me, we do our best to succeed, but nevertheless we have to understand afterwards what have we learned, because it's something which, so always put ourselves in a learning attitude. This is something which helps us to improve and to not to miss a crisis, like Churchill said.
Yeah, no, I've read the biography of Nelson Mandela, and like you said, in that how he says that you're always learning, you're in a learning phase at all times, and I think that's a wonderful nugget. I would like to wrap this up with some rapid, one-liners.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So I'll make it quick, and then whatever comes on top of your mind, Nazareno, let's get that out. Okay. There's no thinking too much in this. So, what's the biggest leadership myth that you've ever heard?
I think that it probably is that the leaders need to be on 24/7 every day. I think it's a myth.
So
I mean,
okay.
It sounds fine, but I think everyone, even leaders, needs to recharge their batteries, need to rest, need to take a vacation, because if you're not able to take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So you're not the one who's working 24/7. You're charging your battery regularly. That's how you
Yes.
become what you are. I think that's wonderful. One thing that motivates you to get out of bed even today after achieving whatever you have.
The will to always make a difference and changing for better.
Oh wow! Okay.
Not being confident that okay, I achieved my objectives, now I can rest.
Okay, so you're always out there to make a difference, to change something.
Yes.
Out there. Okay. Your favorite leadership style that you've always been practicing?
I think servant leadership. As I said about humility. I think humility is different from weakness.
Okay.
So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Which superpower would you choose? Invisibility or mind reading?
Well, all the way mind reading. Mind reading. It's my dream. I will never succeed, but I think it's something that would give us. It would really be a superpower.
But I think, as leaders, there in the executive coachings, or even when I'm speaking at the companies, I always tell them that how we as leaders need to build a lot of our intuitive powers, because the higher we are moving up the ladder, the more we have to depend on ourselves. So I think somewhere intuitiveness and mind reading just comes, as you're growing.
It would save some time if I would be, let's say, being a mind reader, but you're right. We practice a lot and you become intuitive, and somehow you feel like you are a bit a mind reader. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because all the time you're dealing with people, you are talking with them, with your external stakeholders, internal ones. And I think somewhere we all have started to become little mind readers. But like you said, the more we can do that, the more superpowers we would want for that. So if you were to travel back in time and change one thing about the corporate world, what would that change be?
Probably the too much focus on shareholder value economy. I mean, shareholders value brought, was the reason for creating wealth and all over the world. But probably there are two byproducts. One is huge inequalities in the world, and the second is the climate change problem that we're facing. So probably a more holistic approach, taking into account not just the shareholder value.
Okay, that's nice. And to wrap this up, your big advice to people who want to succeed and grow in their career.
Well, I think consistent with my career story, probably one is to learn from being ready to learn from everyone, no matter the status. You can learn actually really from anyone, any people, and it doesn't matter if he's a CEO or he's a cleaner in the company. It doesn't make a difference from that point of view. And the second, I think it's practicing the different languages that are spoken within the organization. Because in every organization you have financial language, operational language, commercial language. Like there are like 4 different languages in the same organization. If you want to succeed, if you want to be able to improve yourself and has an impact on the organization itself, you have to be able to practice all the different languages.
Okay, so that starts early on in the career. Like you don't have to wait for any position or title. The fact that you're in the workforce, you start learning these languages.
Right.
Okay, well, that's nice. Thank you so much, Nazareno. This has been such a wonderful and engaging conversation with you, and I really must thank you for the time. I know how your schedule is, so thank you so much for spending the time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure and an honor. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And this one's for our listeners. This is Nazareno Ventola and Payal Nanjiani wishing you loads of success in your career life. God bless.
God bless. Thank you.